Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nutrition Made Simple. And Nutrition Made Simple is a series where we take a look at some common or complex ideas surrounding health and break them down into easy to understand and actionable steps that pretty much anyone can take. And on today's episode, I have with me the owner, founder of Nutrition World, Mr. Ed Jones. And we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about sleep. What causes people to lose sleep, what causes people to not be able to fall asleep, and what causes people to wake up when they are asleep, and some natural remedies to help with all of those issues. So let's dive right in. Ed, I know that you personally have struggled with insomnia on and off over the years. And so that's proof that regardless of your level of health, because you're one of the healthiest people I know, this can be a real struggle for people, regardless of that. So, what, in your experience and over the years, what are some of the common reasons that you've seen for people to lose sleep or unable to fall asleep?
Well, thank you, Brian. And, I appreciate the fact that you made that statement that actually lack of sleep doesn't have a lot to do with whether you're healthy or not. I know plenty of unhealthy people who sleep like babies.
Yeah.
And so we shouldn't always equate that. And the problem is that lack of sleep is one of the biggest risk factors for cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, depression, anxiety. So many of us are suffering, I won't say needlessly, but suffering and then being medicated when the real cause is lack of sleep. Now, again, you said, and I am a chronic insomniac, there's no doubt about it. I go through periods where I can do fairly well, and then I have other periods where I struggle. And I would say 60% is struggle, 40% is pretty well. Sometimes I can pinpoint why that is, and sometimes I can't. I think most people would probably agree that that's true in their life. And I will say, after listening to tens of thousands of people's health stories since 1979, more than half, and probably 70 to 80%, can get to sleep. They can't stay asleep.
Okay.
They'll get to sleep at 9 o'clock or 10, then they'll have that 1 o'clock awakening, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. That's the biggest issue for most, and I have a game plan that literally I talked about a second before we started this with you, that I can't fix it, but I can manage this insomnia. And if I did not have the toolkit I had and used, I think I might not be here today. So first off, getting to sleep. I use the analogy of, do we pull in our garage at like coming down the road in front of your house, you're doing 40 miles an hour. Do you pull in your garage at 40 miles an hour? No, you start slowing down pretty good ways before you get to your garage. The same exact analogy is sleep. Do not expect to be wide open, doing your emails, running around, getting chores done, and expect to put that head on the pillow and be able to go to sleep. It has to have an unwinding process. Look at animals in nature. I love looking at wildlife because they still remember how to be healthy instinctively. They don't do it with knowledge. They do it with instincts. And they always wind down. They don't just run in and flop down. And we need to do this with our lifestyle habits. I don't know if you do that or not, but many of us too busy people don't. And then secondly, the things that I'm hugely invested in is not being in front of a blue screen or blue colors 3 hours to 5 hours before. My new iPhone has settings where I can remove that, and I have it set for 6 p.m. No more blue light comes out of my iPhone. Computers, iPads, TVs, we sell blue blocker glasses at Nutrition World, very inexpensive. They block those blue lights. Why would we need that? It completely alters the production of our own melatonin and other brain chemicals, not just melatonin. So many people are wearing blue blockers all day long because it's an unhealthy wavelength of lights. And it wasn't meant to be. If we had lived in nature, we wouldn't worry, but we're living in artificial lights which produce blue.
Right.
So no more blue lights, or minimizing. Secondly, I'm a huge fan of taking things to help me get to sleep and stay asleep. What are those? Honestly, I kind of poo-pooed melatonin for many, many years because I thought it made me have weird dreams. I thought it might have given me a headache. New research came out, and one of my star employees, Adam, kind of kept putting that on my desk, and I kept starting to read it. Melatonin, especially after age 40, declines significantly, and it's an anti-aging hormone. It does so much more than just sleep, but it helps us to get to the deep levels of sleep when that's where the recuperative part of sleep happens, is the deep part, not the light part. And I started boosting my milligrams very quickly and found 10 milligrams was amazing to help me stay asleep a little longer and get into deeper levels. Not perfect, but it helped me to get to sleep. Okay. And so I recommend experimenting with melatonin between 1 and 10 milligrams.
Okay, cool. In the wintertime, does that change at all? Because I know it gets darker earlier, and that's when that melatonin production really starts to kick in. So is there a specific time that you're taking it?
I always do it about 30 minutes before bedtime because I can get to sleep. I just can't stay, and I want it to be lasting a little bit longer.
Okay.
It's all about experimenting. If you have grogginess in the morning, do it earlier or do less milligrams. Okay. It's just about experimenting. It can't hurt you, people. No way can it hurt you.
In the wind down time that you talked about earlier, is there any specific time that you're starting to do that? Is it 2-3 hours before your bedtime?
The minimum is 60 minutes.
Okay.
I do really involve myself with a period of time to be in silence and be meditative. And of course, I don't have kids and super noisiness before my bed. And with that, I don't, it's more of a challenge, no doubt, as you know. But I carve out that 60 minutes. And I know that I'm unusual. I really haven't watched TV now in almost 6 years.
Wow.
I have one. Finally, my daughter gave me one. And occasionally I'll watch something. But there's so much to do that I don't really need it. And it's helpful to me because the brain starts going. And be honest with you, reading the news was the number one worst thing for me. And I don't want to be clueless. So if I want to read the news, it's during daylight hours. Well, made an absolute commitment to never look on those buttons after about 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Because it creates disharmony within the thinking patterns because it creates fear. Fear is why we can't usually sleep.
Yeah, and the same could be said for like really intense or dramatic TV shows. If you're watching those, there's definitely an internal response that happens and like a heightened awareness that you're not going to be able to fall asleep very quickly at all. So
yeah, because it raises cortisol, stress hormone. I mean, that would be like running around the block and then expecting to go to sleep. You can't do it, and you're running around the block mentally when you watch an exciting TV show, or even you could be reading the wrong book, but generally reading doesn't do that to you.
Okay, so let's take a minute and talk about if you're not having trouble falling asleep, but you're waking up in the middle of the night consistently. And sometimes, I mean, that's 2 or 3 times a night or even more.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the things that people can do that are natural responses to that to help them fall back asleep?
Well, the one thing I'd say, and I had to learn the hard way, is quit expecting what happened when you were young as we aged. And what was that? I went to sleep at 10 o'clock and I didn't move a muscle until 7 and got up and didn't even hardly remember the night. That's not going to happen as we age. We have to accept the fact that we will start having early morning awakenings. Animals do it in nature. It's called the wolfing hour. Why we do it, there's all kind of clues. Part of it is about 3 o'clock in the morning, if we still had the genetics that we were in the jungle, a lot of predators start really searching food about that time. Who knows? We may still be wired into that. We better be more alert. I don't know. I use the term cognitive popcorn, though. This is what happens. It's generally not a physical disturbance. It's a mental disturbance and emotional based on thinking. So you wake up at 12:30. A lot of us guys, we certainly get up and go to the bathroom. Some women do too. Bladder's an issue in many people. And we certainly have a great pill for that called Sagapro. I have to throw it out. Sagapro helps you to go 50% less at night if you take a Sagapro. It strengthens the bladder. But that first waking, you go in, you come back, you're not going to go right back to sleep. And so unless you can somehow not have this happen, you're going to start thinking of the next day or the previous day. One of those two things will happen. And then the to-do list, and then the what-if list. The what-if list is the fearful list. So I'm completely trusted and connected to the one remedy that I think has saved my life, GABA, G-A-B-A. What is GABA? It's a brain chemical transmitter. We have tons of it when we're young. We start losing it when we get to be older meaning 40-ish, maybe even 35. What does GABA do? It actually is like a filter, and it keeps all of these cognitive popcorns from popping, really. It's like putting popcorn seeds in the cooker, but you don't turn it on. You still have it, but you don't pop them. GABA at 1,000 milligrams, not 500. I put 2 pills next to my bed every single night with a cup of water. If I come back to bed and I have one inkling that this brain's going to start popping, I'm going to take my 2 GABA.
Okay.
So it doesn't make you sleepy, it makes you calm. The reason you can't go back to sleep is you don't have the calmness. So GABA is a miracle substance for me, and because it's already in the brain, that reduces side effects to almost zilch. Now, have I done it more than once a night? Yes. There's been many nights I'll do a 12:30 and about a 3:30. What it does for me is gets me back into the REM sleep, the sleep that is nourishing and cleansing. There's actually, why do we want to be in that deep sleep? I actually thought of this example years ago. Most of us have been to Disney, and we know what a perfection that park is. Absolutely, you would never find a piece of trash. It's beautifully kept up. And can you imagine what goes on at night in that park for cleaning and straightening and removing anything that was toxic or garbage? Well, this is what the brain does if you are in deep sleep. Well, imagine if that park all of a sudden for 2 weeks had some really tough times and no employees came at night. The park would start getting worse and worse with every day. That's what happens when you don't cleanse the brain with deep sleep. Anxiety, depression, foggy thinking, of course, fatigue. All of those things are going to come to the surface because you didn't cleanse the toxins from those brains. We have to have sleep. If anything ever happens to me, it's going to be because of my lack of sleep. But again, my GABA, my melatonin, and a few other relaxing things is my lifesaver. I know it's going to make me live as long as I possibly can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Ed.
All right, Brian.
Hey, we really hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, give us a call, visit us in store. We're always happy to help. And also, you have an ebook on nutritionw.com that is going to list the majority of these and even a few more tips as well. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check it out, and we'll link it in the email. So thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.